Sarah's done most of the marketing for the book, but that was after I strong-armed her into writing for the book. Now that you've written it, now we're gonna work together. Sarah is a freelance social media trainer, content writer, and digital marketer in London. A trained life coach and a cognitive neuroscience graduate, Sarah's favorite topic to write about is the human mind. Sarah enjoys hiking, biking, and all things nature. And of course, blogging about it afterwards. So Sarah, welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, as you just heard, I'm a writer and a social media person. So being a social media person, I'm normally sat by myself in my room all day. So there's a lot of faces moving down. I don't mind admitting that I'm a bit nervous, so thanks for being patient with me in advance. So I had a little excerpt to read, but before that I have...
I'm going to turn the light off.
Okay. So, do you need it on? No?
No, as you can see.
No, it's fine.
Because it's blaring from his eyes. Thank
you. So I have just a little excerpt to introduce my main excerpt. So I just want to start with this. This isn't a story of terror, rock bottom, and rising from the ashes. This is my account of choosing the unknown over the comfortably uncomfortable. So I just want to explain what I'm talking about a bit before I jump into my excerpt. Can everyone hear me okay?
It's a little louder.
A little louder, okay. So just to give you some background to the story, this was about a relationship that I'd been in for 5 years. And it wasn't a bad relationship. As I say, it's not a story of terror and escaping and stuff. It was sort of a comfortably uncomfortable relationship. You know, it looked functional on the outside, but we weren't really happy, it wasn't fulfilling, and I definitely didn't feel valued. And I got to this crunch point with Brian, my partner. Well, that's the main thing from the book anyway. And I got to this crunch point where I'd been offered a job that I really wanted, and he really didn't want me to take it, but not because he thought it would be bad for me, and not because he thought I could do better, but because it didn't suit his needs, in a nutshell. So, thinking about how he was putting himself first in that situation, I really had to stop and ask, why wasn't I putting myself first, and how did I allow that to happen? So this is the main excerpt that I want to read. When the realization of what I had set myself up for finally sunk in, it was more painful than anything Brian could ever say to me. I hadn't been putting myself first, and by setting that example, I had allowed others to do the same to me too. Not just Brian, but other boyfriends before him. If it's true that we accept the love we think we deserve, then I wasn't showing myself any love by staying in this situation for so long. I'd been so grateful to not be in a bad relationship anymore that I hadn't considered the other end of the spectrum. I didn't really know how a good relationship felt, or why I hadn't experienced one before. And I stayed longer than I wanted to out of the fear of not being able to manage alone. So I've realised that this sort of thing that I did with Brian is actually a pattern that's happened throughout my life, and it seems to go in a sort of cyclic way. It first happened for me when I was 16. I needed to basically run away from home. I left my parents for my own safety, and I'd planned this carefully, and I knew I couldn't do it without being brought home by the police until I was 16. So I waited until I was 16 to make my plans to do it. I turned 16, that birthday came and went, and 6 months, 7 months, more than half of the year passed before I actually did the deed. And even though I'd been planning to do it since I was 13, it took me all that time after turning 16 to actually put myself first and do what I needed to do. I think that's because even though our uncomfortable place that we're in is very painful sometimes, it's still even scarier yet to jump into the unknown. So, it's sort of, I've noticed that whenever this happens, I get to a point where I let things, whatever the bad situation is, I let it go on and on until I've accepted far too much hurt and far too much pain before I get to the point where I'm angry enough and uncomfortable enough to be willing to make that jump into the unknown, whatever that is. And when I get to that point, I don't know if this will resonate with anyone or maybe it's an entirely personal thing, but for me, it almost feels like an out-of-body experience where just for a moment, I can sort of rise above just being where I am in my body, and I can see the whole pattern around me. So not just what's going on for me, but the meta view, what's going on for the other people in my relationships and how they're being with me and how I facilitated that in the way that I've been too submissive or too allowing. I can see how other people have perhaps contributed to it, but also my responsibility in that. And my most recent example, I feel like I'm just about on the cusp of one of my out-of-body realizations at the moment. 6 months ago, I left a comfortably uncomfortable work situation and I became full-time self-employed and set up a little business for myself as a social media marketer. And for the last 6 months while I've been doing it, I've been taking any job I can get my hands on, no matter how poorly paid it is, just to make the rent. Now, I'm a marketer and I specialise in small business, so I know that that's not how to run a business. I'm not following my own advice. What I'm actually doing is I'm still in the mindset of an employee and I'm still behaving like an employee, except I haven't got any of the benefits of an employee because I'm my own boss. So I can feel it coming, and I know that I'm on the cusp of having one of my breakthrough realizations that if I don't get there, Priya will make me get to it. But I'll have one of my out-of-body moments soon where I go, oh, silly me, that's not how to run a business. And rather than just saying it, I'll actually feel it. And then I'll get brave, and then I'll start to charge more money, and then I'll start to say no to the jobs that aren't serving me because they're too poorly paid. So that's coming at the moment, and where I am in my life right now, it's the best analogy I can think of. It's like standing on a beach, and you know, if you're thinking of going for a swim and you paddle about on the shoreline and you dip your toe in and oh, it's a bit cold, and if you stay on the shoreline for too long, just paddling about, you get cold, you get really cold, and you start to think of all the excuses why you don't want to go for a swim. You know, I've just eaten, swimming's rubbish, I don't like swimming anyway, and you retreat up the beach and go and get an ice cream, and that's fine, but that's your comfortably uncomfortable zone, and that's where I've been living for the last 6 months. I'm comfortable because I know how to behave like an employee, but I'm uncomfortable because I've not fulfilled my desire to really own my business. So I know that I can't just paddle about for months to come. I need to decide to jump into the sea. And it's not reckless because I know how to swim. I'm a marketer, I know how business works. It's just that I have to believe in myself enough to jump into the sea. And so I'm expecting many more waves to come in 2016. But I think I'm just about ready to jump in and give myself permission to do that. Thanks. Great.
To ask questions. You want to sit down?
Sure.
So if anybody has a question, you can think in a minute. Put your hand up. But now your story, I neglected to say, was give yourself permission to choose yourself.
Oh yes.
Yes, that's my word. So in case anybody was wondering.
You got the drift.
Yeah. So you chose yourself in that situation. How difficult was? When did you realise you had to choose yourself? I mean, how do you get there? What does pain feel like, or what is
angry? Gosh, I was angry. So in the story with Brian, I'd been offered this job, and I was on duty at I just graduated uni, and I had this part-time job that was just sort of helping me to scrape by while I was job hunting. But this was my first big graduate job, was the job in the story that I was offered. And I'd been offered it on a random Sunday via Facebook Messenger. I think social media, awesome. And I was so excited, and I was with two of my colleagues, Andy and Linda. And I got the text through Messenger, and I was ecstatic. And I told them, and they were genuinely so chuffed for me. And the first thing I wanted to do was go home and tell Brian that I'd been offered the job that I really wanted. And I was excited all the way home, and I got home, and I hadn't even finished telling him, like, the words hadn't quite even left my mouth, and he just threw down this stone wall of, you shouldn't take that job. And he couldn't explain to me for a while why I shouldn't take the job. And then I tried to coach it out of him, because I trained as a coach, and he was, don't use your coaching on me.
Welcome to my world.
And then I realised I should have trained as a Jedi instead. But yeah, no, he. When I eventually got to the bottom of it, I think what it really amounted to, whether he would quite say it in so many words as not, from my perspective, it was that this job that I wanted involved a little bit of travel, a little bit of flexibility, and also a little bit of working from home. And he didn't want me to be working odd hours. He wanted me to be in a 9-to-5 routine. Probably had a little bit to do with me cooking dinner every night, and also probably had a bit to do with him wanting to play Xbox at home during the week without me judging him.
But you got that angry bit.
But I got so angry because I've been at uni for 4 years. I've been working so hard, and this was the job that, at the time, it was just the job that dreams was made of. I was so excited to be offered it. And the fact that he couldn't be happy for me made me wonder what on earth kind of partnership I was in.
And that's when you just decided.
And it was intense anger, and that's when something snapped, and that's when I had my sort of out-of-body meta view of why am I letting this other person have so much influence on me when he doesn't have my best interests at heart? And it took that much anger for me to actually choose myself.
And so is that where you maybe are now? With the anger, or is it a different thing?
I'm not angry this time, but I feel this sense of something will have to give, because it's different this time. Because I feel this change in perception, this meta realization of what have I been doing for 6 months is coming. But I'm not angry, and I've only got myself to blame this time. It's not like I can say, oh, that was my boyfriend's fault. This time I've put myself in this situation entirely, and I just haven't allowed myself to fully commit to my business yet. And I suppose that's why it's taking me a while to get there, is because there isn't a tremendous amount of pain driving me to jump into the scene. I know through just common sense that I don't want to stay on the shore for too long, because I'll get cold, I'll make excuses, and I'll become someone's employee again. And that's not really what I want for myself. But yeah, so you might have to push me.
But so if we look at this as kind of a coaching tool, as it were, because this is what this whole give yourself permission is do we choose ourselves? I mean, a lot of people do, and they know instinctively how to do it. But are there some of you that don't? And so what are you going to do to choose yourself? Are you going to get to that angry bit? And so it's just, how can you stop yourself from getting that point of anger and choosing yourself first? So just something to think about. And I've given you these notebooks, not necessarily to write in them now, but it's okay. This is an easy evening. But so you know that this is your Give Yourself Permission notebook. So if there are times that you think, you know what I really actually want to do, whatever it is, how am I going to do that? What am I fearful of? What's getting in my way? And so you can write that out with these books, because I think journaling is the best way just to clear your head. And you can talk to yourself. I always joke about that, because with the book, when I wrote my first book, Give Yourself Permission to Live Your Life Here, 2 and a year and a half, it was my best friend. That's who I spoke with every day. And so everybody's like, oh, isn't it like giving a baby, birthing a baby? I said, well, I don't know. But all I know is I kind of lost a friend. So that's what I want for these journals, is to be kind of your friend. And you don't have to lose it because you can get another journal. But have that conversation. It's an internal dialogue, and that is very useful in coaching. So, anybody have any questions? You don't have to. Yes?
Just kind of collecting. So, I'm thinking of what you're saying, especially about giving permission for me. And I'm like, I can't possibly, I'm already too selfish. I always don't spend enough time with my children. I'm not working hard enough. And oh my God, I watched an hour of 24 today. And maybe that's what you mean, but actually I really shouldn't have done. So, I guess what I'm thinking is, that's totally right for all of you guys, but I'm too selfish a person already. So I guess I'm serious, that must be a mindset actually that quite a lot of women go through. That must be part of it. And secondly, do you ever come across someone who you're like, actually, you really are selfish enough already?
No, is the straightforward answer. No. If just the mere fact of someone saying, I think I'm selfish, they're not. in when they come to me by that time. I mean, it's no. No?
when is somebody just giving themselves permission all the time and that is
Well, that's a whole different thing. The chances are really good they're not going to be here and they're not going to be thinking about that word giving yourself permission. No, because I've had this before when I launched my book, someone asked me the exact same question. I'm like, that's a different book. You know, because there are people, but they're not going to be asking themselves that question, am I selfish? But the other side, the flip side of that, though, is that you can give yourself permission to do something else. So if you think that you're not doing things the way you want to be doing it, I give myself permission to be with my children more. So it's always, what are you going to change and what are you going to look forward to? Does that make sense? And does that answer? Okay. So yes, it'll be a different book or a different thing. It's hard because people don't see that in themselves until they hit absolute rock bottom. So, but anyhow, we can talk about that. So, my last question, what are you going to give yourself permission to do this year?
So, my 2017, what I'm going to give myself permission to do is I want to be able to call myself an entrepreneur by the end of the year without going, and feeling like a fraud. Because I feel really silly, not even saying it out loud, but on Instagram, when I post something motivational and I tag entrepreneur, I feel like, sounds silly, but I want to get over that and just sort of embrace it a bit and own what I do.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you.